Have you ever wanted to have a difficult conversation or confront someone about the way they've made you feel or some of the things that they've done, and you didn't know how to approach it? You had this anxiety about having the conversation, you didn't know where to start, you didn't know how to go about it, and all in all, it ended up being just you bottling it up, holding it inside, and then over time build up this immense resent towards that person and then blow up. And at that point, it's just too late. You've said things that you didn't mean. You never said the things that you wanted to say, and it's just turned into an absolute mess. And now you guys have a big argument. If that's the case, then this video is for you. If you haven't been to my page before, welcome. I'm Hamasa, and on my page, I look at personal development as well as mental and emotional well-being and day-to-day issues. So please subscribe to my page to keep up to date with all my content. Now, this is something that one of my followers sent me. Actually, she's a friend and we talk about things, and she just messaged me and said that, you know, this is something that I struggle with. I seem to just agree to things when I have a problem with something and the conversation comes up. I don't really stand up for myself. I don't really express how I feel. I kind of agree to avoid an argument. And then I end up feeling a bit like meh, like a bit empty and just disappointed and frustrated. So there are things that I want to address to people, I just don't know how to go about them. And I feel like if you don't do that, you build up, like most times the other person doesn't even know that they're doing or saying things that will upset you or that are upsetting you. So what happens is you're building up this resentment against someone, and then you catch them dumbfounded, you blindside them by having a massive go at them or just not addressing the issue and making it more about their character, and really it doesn't really resolve anything. So the other person's just like, what? No way. They become defensive, and then you're offended even more if you're questioning your friendship because you're thinking, well, I'm expressing something that I'm unhappy about, and instead of actually taking ownership or validating how I feel, they're turning it around on me and getting defensive, and I knew they were never a good friend, da da da. But in reality, the other person is probably not even aware that they've made you feel the way that you've been feeling. This is just you bottling it up and not having the courage to really express it correctly, so you haven't, yet you expect them to just know and fix it, and therefore it's just a big palaver, which is what we want to avoid. So I'm going to teach you guys a couple tips that will help you know how to go about this difficult conversation that you have coming up, it will help you just hold your own, try and get to the point, try and achieve the outcome that you desire, and also not to hurt, upset, or disrespect the person that you're having this conversation with. Because if that person didn't really mean much to you, or that situation didn't really mean much to you, you wouldn't really be that anxious about having this conversation in the first place. Or you wouldn't even be having the conversation at all because you wouldn't really care. So clearly you want to make sure that the outcome is good for both of you and you're both on the same page. The first thing to do when you have a difficult conversation coming up is to identify the outcomes and understand all the possible outcomes. Let's say you're breaking up with someone. Your ideal outcome would be you going to them saying that this is how you feel and you want to break up, and so you guys want to remain friends and keep in touch and keep it all civil and fun. That would be the ideal outcome. The other outcome would be that they would turn around, be very defensive, get very upset, very hurt, and not want to speak to you, and you're both going to be sad for a while, and that's the other outcome. The third outcome is that they also agree with you and they feel the same way, and so you're both on the same page. The conversation's very easy. These are just some of the outcomes, but the important thing is for us to identify each possible outcome, because what happens is if you're going to go in your head, set in your ways, and expect that I'm going to break up with this person and we're going to remain friends and we're going to be fun and it's going to go well, then you're going to be very, very disappointed when you have the conversation. And then when the other person is getting defensive, is getting upset, you then might backtrack because you might want to avoid this whole mess that you didn't want to create because you haven't really thought of all the possible outcomes. So once you have your outcome, when you're actually starting the conversation, the first thing I would say to do is to make sure that you detach your emotions from what you want it to happen. Because when you let your emotions take over, you're not thinking straight, you're not going to get to your point, you're not going to get the job done, you're not going to achieve your outcome. So try and detach your emotions and go with taking responsibility. So the first thing to do when you do start this conversation is to take responsibility for your part to play. That way, straight away, you're taking away that defensiveness of the person that you're having the conversation with. Because if you're going to start with, you're like this, you're like that, you're like this, then they're going to just turn around and say, no, I'm not. How can you say that? I didn't do this, I didn't do that. But if you start the conversation with, I really feel like this, and I am going through this, and I feel like this is what happened because, be specific. If you say, you always leave the dishes in the sink and I have a problem with that, you always do this, the other person will turn around and say to you, well, no, I didn't do that yesterday and I didn't do it last week and you left it this day. That's not going to resolve anything. You need to say, I've noticed that the dishes have been left a couple times, and for example, yesterday morning. When you go specific, then it's an issue with that specific problem, and so you're putting facts. It's not your opinion, it's not generalized, it's not generic where it all falls apart. You're being specific and you're giving the other person facts where they can look back at and realize where they've gone wrong or what they've done to have upset you. So take responsibility for what you say. That shows the other person that you're honoring them, you're honoring your part to play in the situation, and the way you're communicating with them doesn't come as attacking, so they're not defensive. My second tip would be, which is very counterintuitive, of course, is to validate the person when they are responding back to you. So because you haven't started with something that you're attacking them, they're hopefully not that defensive. So you're taking responsibility for what you've done wrong or what has made you feel a certain way. You're expressing that. You're giving them an example of what they've done, a factual action to prove why you feel the way you do. And then when they give you a response back to that as to why they've done it or what was their thought process behind this, you then validate them. You hear them out. You listen. Don't just listen to be ready to then respond or react. Listen to comprehend and understand, and also validate and acknowledge what they're trying to tell you and their side of it. And that, again, automatically takes that defensiveness away from the other person. You are giving them that opportunity to clarify, to discuss, and you're being mature about it. Because if you go with all guns blazing and you don't set the tone, then like I said, it just comes across very attacking. Most times they don't even know what they've done wrong. And you're then just as wrong as they are, because you are, two wrongs don't make a right. You're not addressing the situation in a correct way for them to justify what they've done or why they've done it. So it just turns into a mess. That's why it's important for you to validate the other person when they tell you, oh, I did this because of da-da-da, or I didn't wash the dishes because, I had a headache and I didn't feel like it. Then you just say, I completely understand, I also get headaches, or I understand you didn't feel like doing that day, but please understand, you go back to your outcome. That if this continues to happen, then we're going to have to do something about it, like possibly get a cleaner or have days that we take turns so that the dishes are not left in the sink, so that the house isn't a mess. When you converse with someone like that and validate how they're feeling and acknowledge that and give them that space to discuss that, then that defensiveness and that anger goes. So it doesn't necessarily turn into an argument. It's more a discussion. Once you've given that person the validation, their defenses are down, you can then speak and they will listen. And this is where you reinstate your outcome. What do you want out of this conversation and why are you having it? Understand why you're having this conversation and what you're trying to achieve with it, and then reinstate that. If it's to break up with someone, you make sure that you go back to your point and you say, this is great, like you've told me how you feel, I've told you how I feel, and this is now what I want because of these things. Or if it's to make up and work on the relationship, then the outcome is that I want us to be able to have these conversations so that we're stronger, so that we can work on this, and the outcome is that I feel that we shouldn't be doing this anymore, or shouldn't be saying that anymore, and that's why we're having this. So always reinstate your outcome. That's so important. Otherwise, why would you be having this conversation in the first place? You need to know what you want your outcome to be and all the possible ones that may happen, but what you want it to be and why you're having this conversation. What's the reason? for you to start opening this can of worms. There needs to be that, and you need to be able to get back to that and continuously bring yourself back to that. That's how you will keep yourself detached from your emotions, because you look at it as a job at hand. I need to get to this point. So yeah, I know I feel a little bit upset right now, but pull yourself together. Let me try and get there. Unfortunately, difficult conversations are completely unavoidable, be it at home, be it with loved ones, be it at work. It's something that we're faced with time and time again. By having difficult conversations, we're giving ourselves and our partners room to grow and also setting healthy boundaries. I always go on in my videos about how important communication is, but also knowing the skills of how to communicate. It's always comprehending and understanding the person that you're having conversation with, is setting the tone and making sure that you take responsibility for your part to play, and is making sure that you make the other person feel comfortable enough that they start listening to you, so you validate their feelings and you don't attack them and attack their character. You learn the skill to detangle your emotions from the actual subject matter and what you want the outcome of the conversation to be. So I hope that with these tips, you guys have a better understanding of ways that you can approach difficult topics and difficult conversations with those that matter to you, and that something that could just be a conversation doesn't turn into a big confrontation or an argument. It's a skill that we all need to learn, because what happens is we will bottle it up, we will get resentful, and the only person that we will be hurting in all of that will be ourselves. And then we're going to react to that and ruin everything that we were scared of ruining in the first place by not having the conversation. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and comment if you did, and please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys here again next week. Thank you for watching. Mwah.